So, Anne, the district has been assuming that teachers would not go for a model where teacher evaluations were tied to student performance. You came up tonight at this meeting and said otherwise. Can you explain?
Yes, I can. Our contention has always been that, for one, a test score is not a student, and that we are not talking test scores. What we have always pushed with NCLB is that there need to be a multiple measure of a student's performance, and that this ought to be a growth model, not chasing one-size-fits-all scores, but to look at the individual's progress and say, we brought this student from, basic to proficient. And I believe we could find a way to do that. However, the district must come to the bargaining table in good faith and work with us collaboratively to see if we can make this happen. The transformation model, we believe, is a lot less disruptive than the turnaround model, because it will prevent the great movement of lots and lots of teachers, which you would see under the turnaround model. And we're trying to preserve the stability of the faculties and give the kids some continuity in their education and the expectations of who's going to be there for them, and to keep education flowing with a stable staff. That's a really big objective we have, that we want to keep in these times of turmoil. We want the best for our kids.
Now, the new school year begins in about 4.5 months. Do you think it's possible that there could be a meeting of the minds between teachers and the district to establish something along the lines of what you're saying, so that the district could pursue those school improvement grants, possibly get that money, and make these changes at least some of the 7 schools in the 2010-11 school year?
Okay. The district will need to get away from their prior statements about, we'll take your input, but don't confuse it with decision making. If that's their attitude, then I doubt that we will make very much progress. Teachers need to be listened to, teachers need to be respected, and they should not make assumptions about what teachers want. We are also in this crisis as well, and we're trying to be as helpful and yet practical, and not erode our rights as teachers, and not set up a system that will not work if you are unfairly pitting teacher against teacher with various kinds of incentives, particularly like merit pay. We would never go for that, and hanging a test score into the teacher evaluation would probably accomplish the very same thing. The principals could manipulate which students get into which class, thus inflating a score. And we want fairness for all the teachers, and we want what's best for the students. It would be a very big undertaking, and there's got to be a real establishment of trust, and no games, no more games.
But it could be done, maybe.
Maybe. I'm an optimist, but there's a lot of pieces to it, and we deserve the respect and to be listened to and to be taken seriously as educators, because without us there isn't going to be a district, and then we do not want to end up with outside charter schools. They're going to face the same problems that public education does shortly, if not right away. They can handpick people for a short period of time, but eventually, if you look at the statistics, something like 17% of charter schools may do better, and about 46% do the same, and there's about 35% that end up actually doing worse than public education, because they can't continue to make growth, and they do eventually have to take on the students that public education has always been there for.
What about internal charters?
Well, the internal charters make for some interesting approaches to, say, a particular vocational ed program, perhaps, or if there's some kind of a magnet focus, and those have done fairly well. But again, we've got to remember that even when you do an internal charter, you run the risk of cherry picking students to go in there, which is going to artificially inflate your scores for a while and then possibly deflate them below where they would have been if they'd been in kind of a stable continuum.